When we start to work in this world of emotion, it's probably a good idea that we work out what happens when emotions are fired off in it, and also building an emotional vocabulary so that we can start to look at some of the ways and questions we can ask of our clients. So if you think about a brain as having the major part of the brain, and then down the bottom here there's a brain stem, and then obviously the spinal cord goes down in there. Well, up in here is where logic lives, in the neocortex. And down in here is what we call the limbic system. And the limbic system is our emotional centre. It's where our emotions arise from. And the interesting thing to know about our brain is this, that there are more neuroconnectors coming from the limbic system and going up into the neocortex than there are coming back. So what that tells us is logic versus emotion. Emotion can often hijack our logic, and it drives a lot of our behaviour. It is very, very difficult to work with anybody who is in a high level of emotion. And it's an important understanding to work out, well, what are those emotions and how can we use them? So when we're working in the world of advice, we'd like to think that there are 4 big buckets of emotions. And there are thousands of emotions that you can see through people's body language, through micro expressions on their face, through size and all sorts of things. But we give you 4. And they are sad, mad, glad, and scared. And at any one time, we can be feeling these in low levels or high levels. We can be feeling one or a combination of those. And it's very rare that we are actually emotionally neutral about things. There are times when we don't really care, but most times there will be some response to what's going on in our world. So, sad, mad, glad and scared. I encourage you all as advisors to start to ask the emotional question, how are you feeling about things at the moment? Sad, mad, glad or scared. One of those or a combination of those. And it opens up a rich vein for conversation and for questioning about what's really going on in the client's life. Don't just think that we just ask the feelings and let it go. Feelings contain information. They contain data about what's really going on. And they are physiological responses to a certain situation. If I'm feeling sad, my pulse rate slows down. My blood pressure drops. What I want when I'm sad is to be nurtured. I want to be still. I want to be comforted. When I'm feeling angry, the blood rushes to my upper body, particularly to my arms and to my hands. You may have heard the phrase that says, that person's blood boiled. Well, what happened was the blood rushed up to their face and their face got very red. It is so that we can either work in the world of, if we're thinking about fight, flight and freeze, well, this is the fight response. So the blood rushes to my upper body so that I can hit someone. Not appropriate, mind you, if you're working with clients. The next one, glad. When I'm starting to feel glad, my brain starts to release all of the feel-good chemicals, the chemicals that create that sense of hope and optimism. So they would be the oxytocins, the dopamines, the serotonin. They are released in the brain, and then all of a sudden the world looks different for people. And then the last one, feeling scared. And that could be from a certain amount of just nervousness to absolute terror. But what happens in there physiologically is the blood rushes to my lower body, particularly to my legs. So you might feel it as butterflies, or you might get rubbery legged. The idea being that the blood's going down there so that you can run away if you need to. Now, being able to question your clients about this and get a sense of what they mean. So when I say to a client, sadness is the emotion of loss. So if somebody comes in and they're a little bit upset, they're a little bit disappointed in the way that the financial plan has been going, instead of trying to shut it down and justify your position, if you're going to ask a feelings question, honour it. How do you feel? Well, I'm disappointed. Okay, let's talk about it. What do you feel like you've lost? Now you shut up then and allow that person to talk about their disappointment. But to follow it up, you get some great information and then follow it up with, let's have a look at some ways we might be able to get that back. And immediately what you've done is created again that sense of future benefit for them in being in relationship with you. We might be able to get that back or improve on that. The second one is when people come in and they're frustrated or angry, or even when you're angry and frustrated. It's not appropriate to take it out on somebody else by bashing them up, but it is appropriate to think about that feeling and use that feeling along our emotional intelligence flowchart that we've talked about before. This idea of anger and frustration is the emotion of change. So if a client is angry and frustrated, you're able to ask, well, what do we need to change? And in your work, if you're frustrated and angry about things, before you start to blame anybody else for what's going on, start to ask yourself, what do I need to change? And more than likely it will be the way that you're looking at and responding to the situation rather than the situation itself. When people are feeling glad, and we love it when our clients feel glad, you know that, I wouldn't suggest that you always want everybody to walk out of your meetings with just gladness going on. I think it's okay to have a bit of a mixture of these. But certainly around gladness, the question we ask is how do we maintain and indeed improve that? So a client comes in and they go, I love what you've been able to do for myself and my wife. Our financial plan is really delivering for us. Well, great, let's have a look at some things we need to do to maintain that, which brings the ongoing work that you do with them. And secondly, I've got a few ideas about how we might be able to improve that. And consequently, it opens itself up for future work with that client. And then the last one. Oftentimes we do have our clients that come in with a bit of trepidation, with a bit of nervousness. So it's okay to uncover that as well. Don't you be frightened by it. But the important thing is when our client is a little bit nervous about things, we just ask simply, do you need to be safe or brave? If a client comes in and they want to build a lot of wealth in a short amount of time and they don't have a lot of current wealth, then they may have to be rather brave in their investment approach, and that would lead a conversation about the risk tolerance that they have. However, we don't want our clients to be taking any more risks than they actually need to. Our job is to get our clients from where they are to where they want to be with the greatest amount of certainty, the least amount of risk. But again, using the SAD, MAD, GLAD and SCARED opens up the depth. It's that part of the PIES model we talk about as well, the emotional part. So have a practice with that and see how you go. I think it will provide you and your client with a greater depth of understanding of the issues that are going on.